Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Episode 185 of the Wilderness Podcast is brought to you by our supporters. If you want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/thewilderness_podcast. So I would like to welcome Cole Mazurvi to the Patreon crew this week. And of course, this episode is dedicated to Mike Stevenson. And of course, this episode is also dedicated to all of our top tier supporters: Gentinu, Splimo, Dreadful Monkeys, Szechuan, Mallard, Twisted Soul, Hoyt, Monodam, J Blaz, Strosity. Super shout out, just super this time. We're slowly going to wean off the super duperness. But hey, if Patreon's not your thing, that's quite all right. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/dills. You can buy me a coffee. So thank you to Caradoc, 2JZ Soup, The Six, and Forced Murder. So thank you to everyone who supports the show. All right, this was, oh boy, this was a doozy of a week, wasn't it? It's been a while since we had one of these, but oh man, the war against third-party clients returns. Oh man, this is another saga. Okay, quick sidebar. We had this saga of Mod Jed that went on for like what felt like 2 years until it finally came to fruition that he was actually in bed with a bunch of sketchy clans in RuneScape and stole a bunch of money. And he got arrested. Allegedly he had police involvement. Anywho, Saga 2. This is like Dragon Ball Z, okay? Mod Jed, go look. If you're not sure Mod Jed, man, go look it up. It is a wild story. Mod Jed was the Frieza saga. All right, third-party clients is the Cell Games of RuneScape. Anyway, okay, let's get into it. Really had to make that analogy. Welcome to episode 185 of the Wilderness Podcast. I'm your host, Dills, and joined with me today is Mr. Heartless. How's it going?
Hey, doing well, Dills. How are you?
Pretty good. Oh boy, we got a hectic week. I always, I really think doing a podcast on RuneScape is one of the easiest. If you were to do a podcast on any subject, oh my god, RuneScape, it's so easy. There is always something going on. So, first things first, we have Group Iron Man in the works, and we see the first dev blog, the proposal here. But on top of that, there was a fiasco in regards to HD clients that basically improve the graphics of the game. There's been a huge back and forth. It has been a crazy week. Yeah, it's been hectic to say the least. So we'll get into that crusade that's going on there. But Heartless, what have you been up to?
Dills, school started this week, so I've been pretty busy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I don't have a full contract, so I'm subbing.
Do you like subbing?
I do when it's like schools that I know. So thankfully, there's like basically if you're a well-known sub and you're like you know the kids and you're good at your job and people like you, it's pretty easy to get work at like just one or two schools because like literally every teacher will call you. That's how it works. Like teachers get to choose who they want to be their sub. So they just pick their friends or someone they know that's going to do a good job. Yeah, that's one of the nice parts about it. So
interesting.
I know a ton of people at two schools, so I basically just work there. And yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy week. That's all I will say.
I remember when I was in school, being subs were either amazing or you like hated them, and then there's always the stories of like a class making a sub cry, and it just sounds like you got to win them over, or it's a rough go.
Yeah, you can't come in and be like a hard ass sub. That's because they don't have any respect for you. So you need to sort of, especially if you don't know the kids, it really depends on the age. Like it's not hard to sub for little kids. I'll be honest. Like sometimes the class can be out of hand. It depends on the teacher. Yeah, you see a lot of shit though. That's for sure.
Got some stories.
Yeah, I definitely have some stories, man. But yeah, no, it was just a good weekend. I have a friend visiting at the same time, so I didn't play much RuneScape at all till yesterday, basically all week.
Nice.
So yeah, I didn't get up to much. I ended up running my first solo challenge mode raid.
Oh, nice. How'd that go?
It was good. I didn't die and I made time, which is, I was pretty happy with that. I'd done about 20 low 20s, I would say, mostly duos with Poplo. And so I knew the theory of the rooms and like how to prep properly. And I'm pretty good at solo Olm with all the solo experience I had. So I had the tools, but I just didn't know if I had the gear and the time management. But I made it by 4 minutes. So, and I think I could get it down as well. So yeah.
So if you go over the time limit, because challenge mode, they have a time limit. If you go over it, do you get do you lose the chance of getting uniques?
No, you can still roll a purple because you still have your personal points. Usually you end a challenge mode with about 60,000 points, which is double a regular solo. Wow, and it takes about twice as long, so it makes sense. No, but what you don't get access to the unique drop table, which is the Twisted Ancestral kits.
Oh, right,
the dust. Right. Yeah, one out of 100 for the kits, and 1 out of 400 for the dust.
Wow.
So, and you also get a juicy extra 5,000 points per player in the raid. So in a solo, you just get an extra 5K. So, it's pretty good, man. It's definitely fun. I'm gonna dive back into some more. That was kind of my goal. Like when I finished Inferno, was to do them anyways.
So. Did you get no, you're working on the Inferno.
No. It's been hard this week. I haven't had time. I think it's going to be a little bit harder to commit to it than I originally thought. Just because I need to find a little bit more time. It's still one of my goals, but I might just not go as full ham as I thought I was going to.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, that's pretty much been me. What about you? What have you been up to?
Honestly, kind of pretty much the exact same thing, just less so. I haven't had a whole lot of time to commit as well, but I was able to get some gold together and get a Sang staff. So I think last episode, anyway, a couple of weeks ago, I lost a bunch of items at the Fosani's Nightmare, but I've since got it all back, and I've got my Sang staff, which is great. I didn't even have that beforehand, so we're almost like above the rebuild. You know what? The rebuild was a blessing in disguise because it forced me to get my level 5s in Barbarian Assault. And I actually had fun doing Barbarian Assault. Once you have like level 5s and you can do your rolls really well, it's kind of a breeze. Unless you get with a bad team. But
fun with your friends as well if you happen to get 5 together.
Yeah, a few of us from the Discord, we hopped in and we were ripping through it. And it was good. It was actually pretty fun. So I don't know if I'll go back there now that I have my torso and my level 5s, but maybe because the pet's kind of cool. But the one thing that I had done, which was I guess my little milestone or little achievement, was I ran a solo raid, and I was able to complete with no deaths, which is my first, not challenge mode, but it was my first time doing a solo raid in a long time, and it was the first time I ever did it without suiciding in a room or dying in general. And it's purely because I had a Blood Fury and a Sang staff on that helps heal.
Yeah, they definitely help when you're learning.
Yeah, and there's like tricks to like dodging mechanics and all that stuff. And I'm trying. I don't quite. It takes some time to learn it, so I'm not doing that properly, which makes it a lot harder. But it's been a lot of fun because it's very tough and it's really intense. Trying really hard not to get stacked out because that's what keeps happening to me. I get to Ulm and then I get stacked out, and die.
It combines like game knowledge, mechanics, and then timing all in one, which is something that most other content doesn't make you do besides Inferno. It's really cool. Like Corrupted Gauntlet is mostly mechanics. There's not a whole lot of timing to it, but Ulm adds that element to it. Like you could know how to mechanically do the 4-1, which is the melee skip. Mm-hmm. But if you don't know the timing and the theory of how Ulm works, then you're never going to be able to get into the cycle. So it sort of is the culmination of a lot of RuneScape knowledge and sort of time playing the game. So it's very, very, very satisfying when you get it down.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. So I think I'm going to be doing more of it. I haven't, again, I don't know the way the mechanics exactly work or his rotations or patterns. That's the tricky part, but it is a lot of fun to run a solo just because it's
you'll get there,
tough.
man.
Oh yeah. But that is basically it on my end. But we got a killer of a week to dive into. So
dude, after not playing, it was hilarious breaking open Reddit and just seeing this on the front page.
I even had Deegan who when he messaged on Discord being like, it's bad when he's like, when I'm seeing a shit ton of RuneScape stuff on Reddit on his front page, because he doesn't really play it anymore, so he's not on the subreddit as much.
I think everyone saw it that browses Reddit this weekend. That's for sure.
All right, though, let's get into it. So first things first, before we get into all the fun stuff, Group Iron Man. They pitched it a couple years ago at RuneFest. They mentioned it again in Summer Summit, and here is kind of the first proposal to Group Iron Man. So the question is, what is Group Iron Man? Well, it is basically Iron Man mode, but you and a select few of friends can start a group with new accounts and become a Group Iron Man, where you are able to trade items amongst the 2 to 5 players. There will also be a leaderboard for different groups as well, so this can get a little bit competitive. And from what I've seen, any issues there are with Group Iron Man, it's because of the competitiveness that some players are going to take this game mode. So I think a big reason why a lot of people want Group Iron Man is because, 1, Iron Man is tough, and 2, because I should go back. I should say it's tough because if you don't have a lot of time, things can get tedious, things can be kind of slow, and it can be rough to not make much progress. But with Group Iron Man, you can kind of split off tasks and different goals and have people grinding out certain stuff. But I think one of the big pulls is that you can actually do a lot of bossing together. You can go to God Wars and boss together instead of being forced to solo it on an Iron Man. Yeah, so a lot of it seems like people are either really excited for this or people don't really care too much about it. What's your thoughts going into this? Do you care at all about the Group Iron Man?
Like I previously stated, because I have an Iron Man, it's not really my thing, but I think it fills a really nice niche in the game. Like you said, there's not really much. I can't do I can do Chambers basically in Theater of Blood, and Chambers I choose to do by myself. So it's basically just Theater of Blood that I do with friends.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer because I have a lot of friends in this game. I love to do content with them. Also, going through the journey with other people is really cool too. So I think there's a lot of positives to this game mode, and I think it could be a really fun side project, maybe for a lot of people that still have accounts that they're maining. If anything, but I think some people are going to go pretty hard on it and have a good time.
Yeah, I think there's some people who kind of tend to game with maybe a group of friends, and they might, this might give them a reason to kind of invite them to RuneScape, or maybe bunch of them move over to RuneScape to play an Iron Man mode together. And a lot of people as well mentioned that content creators will be able to make content for us to consume. But yeah, similarly, I don't really play Iron Man mode, so I probably won't participate in Group Iron Man, but I will watch others as they enjoy that game mode.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad it's here.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Now we'll get into it in a minute, but there has been a lot of arguments and debates on what this game mode should be, because people who play RuneScape tend to get competitive. And when you get competitive, there has to be a bunch of rules. And when there's rules, it makes arbitrary restrictions sometimes, which is part of the problem. But generally speaking, Group Iron Man mode will work the exact same as Iron Man, except that you'll be in a small group. So this also means you can de-iron your account at some point, but you will have to leave the group that you're in. One thing that people are not super happy about, which I totally understand, and it's kind of a weird problem, but I think it has to do more with the game engine and the game code. But it has to do with player-owned houses. So right now, Iron Man, which I never understood this, and it's kind of lame, and I wish they would fix it, but Heartless, you can't actually invite anyone into your house, right?
No.
Yeah, and you can't use anyone else's house either, which I guess
That
part makes sense.
It'd be
Yeah.
silly at level 1 you could just have access to all the teleports in the game.
Yeah, but you can't have like a house party and invite people, which is kind of a shame. Because there's a lot of things in a player-owned house that are just like cosmetic or just things to like be cool.
Not gonna lie, don't really care. I just got used to the fact that no one visited, and I rarely, outside of like maybe having people over for some kind of like leveling party, wouldn't actually have people in my house. And then at that point, I just use the clan hall.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's definitely strange, and some people get upset about it. So I understand.
Yeah, I think when it comes like back in the glory days of old school RuneScape, when or RuneScape in general, where people had player like house parties, and because you can really pimp out a dungeon, you can pimp out all these like parts of your room that really don't offer any benefits except for that they're maybe fun or they look cool, and they, you can even get some sort of I don't even know what it is. You can put like a stack of coins on a table, I think, and it costs you like 200 mil GP to do that.
Yeah.
Anyways, the fact that you couldn't show, if you were an Iron Man, you did that to your house and you couldn't show it off. So that's always
Now, I would probably bet a large sum of money that most Iron Men that have nice houses, like sort of that are like late games, have 2-tick houses, so they're like super sweaty, so they're very minimalist. I bet. Like my house is very minimal,
right?
My house is minimalist, so that I can do corp and stuff. So
yeah, okay, yeah.
4x4 is as big as you can go to keep the. Usually mains can get away with 3x3 houses, but 4x4 is as big as you can go, and it's the same wait time. I think it's 2 ticks. But that's the fastest. That's the fastest you can get. So if you're doing something like corp, where you teleport into your house every 10 seconds. You want the fastest load time possible. When you start adding dungeons and stuff, it gets so slow to load your house. I mean, it looks cool, and that's great and whatever. And a lot of people like to have full houses for the parties. But I would bet you most Iron Men aren't those kind of people. So
solid 5-minute wait time to go do corp.
Yep,
sounds like fun. So anyways, circling back to Group Iron Man, the problem that it is with the player-owned houses is that. Even with your group Iron Man, you can't share Iron Man and woman. You can't share a house. You can only have individual houses, and you can't visit each other's house either. But I think this ultimately comes down to the game code or the engine that kind of prevents this from happening. And it's been addressed, and people have asked for it. And I think the devs have come back to say like, that won't be happening anytime soon.
That would be so cool if you all shared one house. I would really like that, but it's
that'd be cool.
I understand that we have limits in this 20-year-old game, so I accept that.
Oh yeah,
like bank space as well is another one that I just come to accept.
Yeah, it's so hard for them to add anything, right?
I don't think there's anything they can do to fix it.
Like there was some odd years ago they added 8 bank spaces if you have a PIN, another 8 if you have an authenticator, so you got an extra 16. But
yeah, but that was wasn't that when they changed engine?
I'm not too sure.
As far as I know, I think old school cannot have more than 816 bank spaces. And I remember Mod Ash explaining it years ago, and I remember reading that and saying that makes sense. So that's why they've been coming out with things like the seed vault.
Yeah, and like stash units for clues, places you can like store a bunch of items,
like the fishing loot thing where you put your feathers and stuff in there.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Either way. I hope it comes out soon. We've waited way too long for it.
Yeah,
and it's taken up far. And the thing I hate about it is it's taking up far too much of the development time.
Yeah, it's true. But it seems like hopefully, they mentioned. I forget when they exactly mentioned it, but I think end of fall is their hope for it.
That's cool. Yeah.
Anywho, this is like anyways, we'll get to it in a second. But this is still the pitch. So if you want to make a group Iron Man, you can do this by going to what's called the Node, which is a small little island off of Tutorial Island, where you and your group can create your group together before you leave the island itself. So to form a group, you will need to. It's kind of like a clan. You kind of have to have a group of people ready beforehand. I guess that's obvious. Now, this is where things get tricky because you are able to recruit into existing groups, though. And let me see. The only The only way you can add a new player to your group is if they are a fresh account. So if, Heartless, you and I made a group Iron Man, and then we are off playing and we're all max accounts, and then one day Magpies and Degans show up and they're like, we want to join the group Iron. They can do that if they are still on Tutorial Island.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Mm.
And you can't, and we've mentioned this before, but you cannot leave. You'll still have a group Iron Man symbol if you become a solo group Iron Man. So actual irons won't be affected by it. So it's not like you can just juice up an Iron Man level 3 off Tutorial Island, give him a berserker ring, and then he can quit the group. That's not going to happen.
Well, if you drop out of the group Iron Man that you're in, but you still want to play like a solo Iron Man, you will lose all of your tradable items, but you'll keep, your level stats, quests, and untradables. It's just the tradable items that would get deleted, so you can't actually snag, steal people's berserker rings and then keep it for yourself. Now, if you want to become a regular account, you can still do this, and you will actually get to keep your tradable items. So it's only if you want to become a regular Iron Man.
You mean a regular main?
Well, if you could, so you could snag a bunch of people's items and become a regular main. If that you could technically do that.
But anyone could just trade you those items. So if you just picked one in the first place.
So only if you wanted to grief your group, maybe if you got backstabbed by your group or something. I don't know. Each group Iron Man will have a leader similar to clans, and they will be, I guess, the leader of the group. But that player can then step down at any point and hand their leadership to somebody else. So, and then this is where kind of things get tricky, because they start mentioning, boosting of accounts and wealth transfers and the high scores. And this is where a lot of debate has been going on, because a lot of people see Group Iron Man as a fun mode to play with friends, but with anything, as soon as you add a leaderboard or high scores, it causes people to find ways to rise to the top, and easier than maybe otherwise. So the first thing they address here is boosting, and they say they want to avoid Group Iron Man boosting being a meta, and they want to prevent a situation where an experienced player comes in and artificially boosts a new group. We certainly do not want new groups being tricked into paying anybody to get a good start. However, you can assist your friends and long-term group members, because this is not against the rules. They want to allow for that. The following systems are therefore in place to prevent boosting. So this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of things. Prestige group and high scores. Groups that remain the same after a formation have a prestige status. This means they are distinguished from other groups that have changed over time. This will encourage groups to stick together and is our way of recognizing the loyalty of a group and the progress they've made together. Prestige status is on by default for every group and is lost upon inviting anyone else into your group after it has formed. So people can drop out of your group and you'll still keep your prestige of your own collective group, but as soon as you invite somebody else, it is gone. When a new member joins a new group, there are hard caps on how much wealth that player can receive from the existing members of the group and from the shared storage. This prevents an existing group transferring all of their wealth to a new member before leaving. By prolonging the transfer, this should deter boosters while not being too much of an inconvenience for legitimate players. The cap starts off very restrictive, but quickly becomes more lenient, increasing weekly as it follows. So the first week, a new player can receive 1 mil, second week 20 mil, third week 50 mil, fourth week 100 mil, and on week 5, the cap is lifted. Now, content restricted items. So to ensure that the players using certain items are deserving of them, we will be restricting the use of them until that new player has successfully completed the relevant quests at least once. For example, if a player wishes to use the Garazi Rapier, they must first complete Theater of Blood. They would then be able to use all the weapons from that raid. Similarly, they must complete at least 1 Chambers of Xeric to use any of the items from there. And this goes for all boss uniques as well. So if you wanted any Bandos items, you'll need at least 1 kill count from General Grardor.
That's a little bit silly because a level 3 could get a completion at Tob and at Chambers. Chambers, 0 risk. At theater, you could just stand outside all the rooms and then just insta die at Verzik, and your team can carry you. So
Yeah, I guess it's their way to prevent some level, I guess, low level iron account to be like look like it's super pimped out when it actually, even though they just need the 1 kill count, but maybe stuff like like the Bandos boss getting 1 key C would be a little bit harder.
well, I think what they're really trying to stop is you starting a fresh Iron Man, but actually starting a group Iron Man, joining 4 guys that are super late game, then you paying them a bunch of like, I don't know, let's just say real life money, and then they get you out with, I don't know, construction supplies for 82 construction, maybe some Theater of Blood weapons, a prayer scroll of each kind, and then you leave the group and just become a regular Iron Man. That's what they're trying to stop.
Right. Okay. Now, but if I'm not mistaken, you don't lose the group Iron Man status, right? If you become a solo previous group Iron Man player.
I don't know. That's I thought so, but then I thought you just mentioned that you've just become a regular Iron Man like 10 minutes ago, which is why I was confused and why they have this boosting thing.
So if you decide to leave a group, you must pick 2 options. Yeah, keep group Iron Man status. Okay, yeah. So you would still be a group Iron Man, just a solo player, or you'd become a regular account.
That's how, and that so it's less relevant. Like imagine you could have become an actual regular Iron Man. I think that wouldn't be very good because the modes shouldn't be able to really be connected because one's solo and one's group. So I'm glad that's the way they did it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then finally, the last part that they're adding is you can decide to be a hardcore group Iron Man. And there will be a number of lives equal to the number of players in the group, but one person could lose all lives for the group. It's like a collective live like hardcore account for everybody. So if you're a group of 5, you have 5 lives, I could die 5 times and lose it for everybody. And then everyone would become regular Irons.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I saw one of the JMods made a comment of like trust no one and choose your friends wisely.
I like that there's more than just one life though. That's really sweet. Because not gonna lie, most hardcores die to just DCing. The late game ones anyways, the ones that are really, really good at the game. So
yeah, like I guess the other way could be like each person has their individual life, which I think could be fun for the group to be like, oh, look at, Dill's lost his, hardcore status real quick versus you logging on and being like, oh my God, who lost 2 hardcore statuses last night?
Yeah, but then the other thing is like if you lose yours to a DC and everyone else is prestiged, a lot of hardcores like to just remake, right? True.
That's
so fair. Then you have this weird thing where like I DC and I want to remake, but my friends are all hardcore still, so they don't want to. I think that would be unfortunate.
Yeah, now you have 5 DCs available.
Exactly.
That's funny. All right, so there's group Iron Man in a nutshell, and of course, this is the funny part. I thought this was just like coming into the game at this point because they've talked about it so extensively. No, there's still a chance this could fail and not make it into the game. So they say question 1, should group Iron Man and hardcore group Iron Man be added to the game as described in the blog? And then question 2 is for Iron Man only. Should we introduce a way for Iron accounts, normal, hardcore, ultimate, and any variation of group Iron Man to buy bonds via the Grand Exchange? They would not be able to sell bonds though. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So of course, should group Iron Man be added into the game? I think we're both going to say sure, why not?
Yeah,
can't hurt. Now, 2 though.
Funny if it didn't pass.
Oh my God!
Can you imagine after like 2 years of development, it just doesn't pass?
Just doesn't come close.
They'd just be some. I think some people would quit Jagex for sure.
Oh my God! They'd be like, "Why didn't we pull this earlier?"
Working on a project for 2 years of your development life and it fucking doesn't get into the game.
This is all you have to show on your portfolio of work and it gets shut down before it even starts. Oh God. Because a lot of this is being like coded. They have to figure out what they're even capable of. Just to find out. Anywho.
It took so much development time. But yeah, question 2 is interesting. Hey,
what do you think as an Iron Man?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why not. I mean, but here's the real thing is it's currently better how it is right now. So let's say I get a duplicate, I don't know. I have a duplicate pair of Bandos Tacits. So they're worth about 20 mil. I could drop those over to an alt account and buy 4 bonds with the alt, right?
Okay, yeah.
However, if I could currently buy bonds on my account right now, it wouldn't be very useful because I can't sell the Bandos Tacits for gold. And those are the only things that are valuable. Like I have gold, like I have 100 mil right now in cash, but that cash is more valuable to me to buy blood runes from shops than it is to buy bonds. So I think it's kind of stupid because it's way more efficient for irons to, unless you're like so late game that you have bills and bills. But at that point, you probably have so many duplicates that it's still more efficient to trade over to an alt, like a duplicate of Vernic or something. I'm gonna vote no to this one.
Really?
Simply because there's no reason for it to be in the game.
The positive side of having this is, I mean, one, if you're an Iron account and you don't have a main, you don't have to worry about having a main that's a member just to transfer over gold. But also, once that main buys a bond, they then need to make it tradable to use it on the Iron, right? So that's another 200, 300K that they have to spend just to convert it.
But still, cash is, especially early to mid game, cash is so incredibly valuable on an Iron Man, and it's not something that's easily replicated. Whereas like duplicate drops in the end game, like I have like 2 Vernics in my bank, several of each prayer scroll, multiple God Wars pieces. But I got like 200 mil worth of extra items that I could drop over to an alt. So the extra few 100K to make it tradable is like, it's not relevant to me anymore. Whereas the money I've accumulated, I had to alch all that money, I had to do like hours of rooftops just to get the alching done. So I think it's a little bit silly. Yeah, I see what you mean, like not having to have an extra account, but you could just use one of the bonds for that extra account and buy a whole bunch of them.
Do you see like any negatives if Iron Man could buy bonds? I'm trying to think, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking up on RuneLite now. It says you can alch a bond for 1.2 mil.
Yeah, but you just spent 5 mil to buy it. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think if there's some way that this could have some sort of, because if there's a way to abuse some sort of, not bug or some unintended.
I don't think there's a way to abuse it. I just think it's dumb. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's not like a necessary update. I guess then you don't have to have 2 accounts, but I guarantee you every single late game Iron Man I know has an alt. Even if it's a crappy alt and it's like level 40, they at least have one to be able to ship money around, because you end up just getting so many extra items. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't see any harm with it, but I also don't see the point of it. So therefore, it's an update that we don't need, in my opinion. But
I could see some people benefiting from it. I would love to hear if anyone can think of a way that you could, like, I don't know.
Sorry, I'm negative on this. I'm usually positive about most things, but this is just something that I don't understand.
I don't quite see your side of it as much. I think it's kind of what you said earlier. I don't see any harm to it. This is something that I would be pretty surprised if it fails the blog, because unless there's some sort of way you could exploit, I don't know, alching bonds. I don't even know how. I'm sitting here trying to think of a way you could, I don't know, sneak by something, but I'm not too sure. So I would be surprised if this one fails, though. But you know what? You never know with this community. Maybe a lot of people share your sentiment, right?
But then they're using development time on something. I don't know how long it takes for them to do this. If it's a quick thing, then whatever. But if they're taking a lot of time to do it, I don't see why they would be putting something in that's useless.
Very, very interesting stance. Yeah, well, we'll see how it plays out, although I have a feeling it will pass. But if it doesn't, we'll be back here to talk about what happened there.
Yeah, I agree. It probably will.
But who knows? Maybe you're not alone. Maybe most Iron Men are like, fuck that.
Well, mains can vote on this, and they, for the most of them, just won't understand. So,
well, for that question there specifically, it's for irons only. It says you have to have an Iron, Hardcore, or Ultimate Iron Man account.
Then honestly, it might not pass.
That's gonna be so interesting. Who knows? I don't know what goes on in the Iron community. I'm in the Ironscape Discord, and I know they've always got some sort of, no, they don't always got, but there's a few times that they have some issue going on in that small little corner of, not small, but the corner of the game. So there you go, Group Iron Man in a nutshell. We'll see where it goes from there. But oh boy, now we got to get into the juicy stuff, the big stuff. If you oh god, I was gonna say, if you've been on the internet at all and you frequent any sort of gaming social media stuff, Reddit, Twitter, whatever it is, you would have seen that there's been a huge basically war going over between Jagex and third party HD clients, or clients that basically give a higher quality of graphics to the game. There's a few of these available, and then there was one that was set to come out this week, when suddenly, well, it started with Jagex. They did a stream showing off that they are working to do. They're kind of revamping some of their graphics, and they're coming out with like a new lighting system that would make things just look more like a more dynamic lighting system in game that would make things just like look better. And it seems like they're slowly wanting to get a graphical update to come out to the game. You know, I think it was 2011. RuneScape went from a, you know, the graphics we have now to an HD client. You're able to toggle between the two of them, but it kind of updated the graphics a little bit. Now this is a very contentious debate, it seems, because people are on both sides of things, it looks like. But Jagex came out with a statement saying third-party HD client statements, and it says right here. Well, I'll read what they had to say. But they mentioned the reason for this statement is because they are working on a project that HD clients are basically conflicting with. And they basically don't want it to pull away, like using an HD client if Jagex is coming out with a similar project. So here we go. It says, before we dive in further into your project, we want to take a moment to talk about our plans in the interest of transparency. While it is still relatively early in the exploration stages, and while we will always maintain authentic style for old school, we can confirm that we are actively investigating and experimenting with enhanced graphics and what that means to old school RuneScape's visuals. This is an in-house project, and though early, is very much in progress. Naturally, this means that any fan-led project which seeks to change the way old school RuneScape looks is at an odds with our own plan. We think it's absolutely vital that there is consistency in the way that old school looks, and so we want to make certain that our official changes will be the only ones available. Hopefully the news that Jagex and the old school team are tackling this project in earnest is something that excites you, even though it does mean that we need to politely ask you to shut down your personal projects. We'd like to thank you for your cooperation, and we'd like to offer to involve you in feedback sessions once our own project reaches such a stage. Blah, 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 blah. We'd like a reply by September 20th, which is 2 weeks from today. Signed, the old school team. So this got sent out to what I believe is a number of different third-party client developers. One of them being a user named 117, I don't know what you want to call him, 117, who had created an HD plugin that had been that was sent off to RuneLite for review. It was actually set to go live either the day prior or the next day, either the 6th or the 8th. I think it was the 6th.
It was the next day. Yeah.
It was the next day. So Jagex drops it and says, no, you have to shut this down one day before it was released. And then that's when
after the guy 117 had put 2K hours into making this thing, which is the equivalent of one full working year, 8 hours a day for 5 days a week.
That's hectic.
Crazy. Dude, what a fucking joke.
So that happened and people lost their goddamn minds.
Dude, they lost it.
Oh man, there was riots going on. The subreddit had, they had posts that got so many upvotes.
All-time highest posts. Doubled our last highest post of all time. It had like 80k upvotes or like 95k. It was huge. It's like top posts on Reddit. Over
the course of the week, there was like three threads on Reddit that became the highest post of the day. Like if you go to the front page of Reddit, which has every single subreddit, you would have seen something for RuneScape, and which means you had maybe people who don't even play video games or whatever it is, and they're seeing like, what the hell is this? What is going on here? And if you're I use Reddit. I use Reddit all the time. And usually when you go to the front page, it'll be some stupid meme, some funny video, something political, or some big news thing. Very rarely is it some video game drama that shows up. But RuneScape has done, old school specifically has done this a few times, and this week was a combo of highly visible threads on Reddit.
Yeah, my God, this is a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, so
Are we gonna
that
go through
happened.
the whole? We're gonna go through the whole story first.
Yeah, because over the
Yep.
course of this week, it was a back and forth, a back and forth, a back. It was like, so anyways, this happened. A giant uproar happened. There was debates on both sides. We could have the debate where what is warranted. We saw people arguing about this in the Discord, saying on one hand, 117 really has no right to redesign the look of RuneScape. He doesn't own the game at all. Obviously, it's Jagex's property, so Jagex has full right to come in and say, no, you can't do that. We're going to shut you down. And they've done this in the past with third-party clients. We had this whole fiasco a few years ago when RuneLite first came out, and there was a huge fight between OS Buddy, RuneLite, and a third one called Conduit. That one died. Who knows what happened to that one? But now we're seeing it with HD clients. So on one hand, Jagex is in the full right to shut down someone who's making a type of client like this. On the other hand, this is why a lot of people were upset, is it's very obvious that this was being worked on for, as you mentioned, 2,000 hours, a very long time this was being worked on. It got submitted to RuneLite months ago, and it was being reviewed. I don't know the reviewing process, but Adam from RuneLite, I believe he's the head honcho there. They had been reviewing all the code. Forgive the ignorance. I'm really bad when it comes to like any coding related stuff or anything to do with like back end development or computer or internet, whatever it is. Anything back end, I have no idea how it works. But
it's been in the works for multiple years, and we've been getting teasers for it from 117 other members of RuneLite for multiple years. Yeah,
exactly. And it was finally being reviewed, which takes months because it's such a big project, especially coming into RuneLite. And then of course the day before it's supposed to release, Jagex comes in and says, nope, you got to shut it down. And ultimately that's kind of what happened. We didn't get it released this week. But of course, a big uproar happens, and the next day, Jagex comes back with an update. And he says, we aim to clarify our stance on third-party HD clients and other projects that seek to radically change the visual appearance of the game. We hear your feedback loud and clear, and we've been discussing that feedback all day, and while discussions continue, we absolutely intend to act on it. So they began talking with 117scape and Adam from RuneLite, and we are actively exploring options on how we can work together to offer 117scape's plugin as a bridge until our own version is ready for release.
Full damage control mode.
Oh my God, yes. We perfectly understand you'll have a voice in old school, and that voice at times can be the one of frustration regarding the bad decision we make. Be assured that we always welcome your feedback, whether good or bad. We don't always get it right, but we are only human. We are rectifying our approach. Yada, yada, yada. And then they say at the end here, we have sadly seen unacceptable levels of abuse toward individual staff members on social media in the last 24 hours, which we will not tolerate. The team is filled to brim with people of passion. Please try to remember that behind the crowds, there are real people who are trying to do their best for the game and its community. And they say we need to provide a clearer version for our own client. That's why we made the decision yesterday. They basically say, we'll be back with some more news. So they came back and they clearly started talking to 117scapes and Adam from RuneLite about, what's up. And at this point, when I had been following it, people had said, this is them kind of trying to calm the storm, this giant uproar that started happening, especially when it gets catapulted to the front of Reddit. And I got Google alerts for like different news items. Just, the algorithm tracks what I'm interested in. So I'll get random stuff of like bands that I like. And then of course I get like a news article of like RuneScape does this. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened now? So a lot of people actually were still skeptical at this point of what was going to happen. They thought that they were just in talks to prevent this giant uproar from continuing, hoping that things would die down as time went on and people just accepted it. And one thing to note as well is almost in every dev blog and sometimes statement, it will tell you everybody who was involved on that dev blog or who worked on it. It'll have their names at the bottom. They say thank you for your support. Then it lists all the JMods. With all of this stuff, it says the old school team. So basically what a lot of people are confident in, and many JMods had confirmed that this isn't coming from a lot of the developers that we see on live streams or that we see interacting on social media. This is coming from a more administrative team or like a legal team, people that we like either aren't even on Reddit or aren't even on Twitter.
Don't even play the game.
Yeah, they're
exactly
the big
like,
wigs,
sort of like upper management.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the speculation turned out to be true.
Yeah, and some JMods had confirmed it. They're like, yeah, you know what? We don't, this wasn't our choice. It is what it is.
So this is like, so far, probably the biggest scandal / shocking event that RuneScape's old school's ever had, I would say. At least the heights that it reached in the media is crazy.
On paper, this doesn't seem like one of the biggest scandals or biggest controversy.
It's not a scandal. Mistake. It's a mistake. What they did was a mistake for sure. I sort of like jumping the gun with my opinion.
No, but at the same time, it did, from the amount of attention it got, it is 100% probably the most, it definitely received the more attention than like even when RuneLite was going to get shut down.
Yeah, this is like the majority of the player base plays on RuneLite. This game came out of the community banding together to want old school. It just seemed like such a poor decision. It was so poorly handled. I just don't see how a company like that, who's sort of like built off the back at this point of its player base, doesn't listen to them or doesn't like believe in community-based projects, because that's like what the entire game is.
It's really tricky. So I mean, the end result ended up being Jagex said, okay, you know what, 117scape, we've talked with them, and they are going to release the project on Monday, September 13th. So by the time you hear this episode, that's probably already out. You can probably already try it on RuneLite. So basically got delayed by a week. And Jagex had asked them to... Jagex asked them to... When Jagex is finally ready to release their new, HD, I don't know if you want to call it a client or their new HD rework or whatever project it is that they're working on in terms of graphics, then 117 said, okay, fine, I can shut down things then, basically. My favorite part is their last update from this. It ends with, we're excited to see what you guys think of 117scape's incredible work. We can't wait to see screenshots of your favorite areas with this project. So
it's hilarious. The whole thing is like laughable in the end of how poorly it was handled by Jagex.
Yeah. Do you watch The Office?
I do, yeah.
There was in one of the first seasons, I'm currently rewatching it now with the missus, and one of the first seasons, there's an episode where Michael Scott has to fire someone from his building, and he ultimately decides to fire this guy named Creed. So he brings him in to fire him, but then Creed says like, you shouldn't fire me, you should fire this guy named Devin. So then Michael Scott's like, okay, fine. Brings in Devin, and then he says he's going to fire Devin, and he tells him that basically like Creed convinced him to fire Devin, and then Devin tries to convince Michael Scott to fire Creed again. And he's like, I can't bring him back in here to fire him. I'm just going to look so stupid. And then he's like, so you're basically saying like I'm getting fired just to make you not look so stupid. And he's like, yeah. Anyways, that scene there reminds me exactly of like what Jagex is doing with like with this like plugin where they're like, no, you guys shut it down. We have our own projects, stiff arming it. And then they go, okay, you know what? Maybe you can use it. And they like end it with, guys, we can't wait to see what you guys think of his project. We're so excited to see all the screenshots you're going to post about it.
It is funny. I think most of the anger came from not even the fact that it's to do with the plugin. I don't think the plugin really has anything to do with the anger. It's just the fact that this guy, or I mean, it is for some people, but for me, I wasn't angry, but I was like shocked that this man who they knew had been working on this project for thousands of hours, like 2K hours, that's insane, man, for like an open source software, like a passion project.
Mm-hmm.
And then to come out and shut it down one day before seems like deeply unprofessional. and just disrespectful towards all the work that sort of he and in that sense the community has done, because RuneLite is basically a community passion project, and we've sort of built the game, and obviously we've gone a little far, don't want to Gorillas plugin, Zoar plugin, but I mean, to be fair, those get shut down. But this is just sort of the evolution of the community making the game how they look, and I think whether or not you are in favor or like are not going to use the HD client, you can agree that it was pretty disappointing, and it sort of felt like they weren't just attacking 117, they were like going after the entire community. That's how I felt anyways. So I sort of felt like personally involved, even though I wasn't. It just wasn't a good look. And I know it wasn't the old school team, the dev team, because typically it's not. I mean, they've made mistakes, sure, but this was pretty extreme. And it seemed sort of, I don't know, they just weren't in line with what was going on. So it's a tough situation. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's tricky because, like, I mean, from like a very, I guess, biased, like my personal opinion, I know people don't feel the same way. I would love to see an update to the graphics. I'm not a huge fan of the old school RuneScape graphics, to be honest. I think they're decent. They've grown on me for sure, but I 100% know that a lot of people look at this game and they say this game looks like crap. I've tried to show many people to get into the game, and a lot of people will look at it and be like, this game looks stupid, and they won't even give it a try. So before they even know how the gameplay mechanics are, they just look at it and they see a game that just looks janky.
Yeah. I was killing a Bloodveld once, and my girlfriend said, ew, and she left the room. Good
That's
times.
Funny. But yeah, just and a lot of us, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people argue that it's got it's has a charm to it. And I would disagree. While it does have like a certain I guess vibe from it, generally like things clip all the time. When you look at like shooting a bow and stuff, like it's just the arrow, like
you use animation smoothing, right?
Yeah, maybe that's it. That's on me then.
So I thought. So I understand like where you're coming from. So you're pretty stoked on the plugin then.
I mean, I'm gonna try it for sure. I remember when OS Buddy, and I think it still is a thing, but there was a time. So anyone who might be newer to the game, so I agree, and I was agreeing with your point that this like definitely got the most attention out of any big issue beforehand. But there was a time where Jagex came out and said the exact same thing, but they said all third-party clients need to get shut down except for OS Buddy. That was actually a very crazy time.
But that was something different, though.
Oh, but OS Buddy, you had to pay. There's a paid version of it.
Yeah, because Jagex was getting some of the profits. OS Buddy was in bed with Jagex, which is why that happened.
Oh, yeah. And then RuneLite was a free version that was better as well.
Yeah.
The one thing that OS Buddy had that I actually liked that never came into RuneLite is they had this thing called OpenGL. And it kind of like really smoothed out a lot of the graphics. And it just made things a lot more vibrant. And I really like that plugin. So I am probably going to try out this HD client. I think the environments look good. I think the problem that I've noticed with a lot of HD clients, and this isn't the only HD client, by the way, we'll get into that in a second. And same with RuneScape 3. The character animations always, I find, look bad. They look too round and like claymation almost. The environments tend to look really nice, and RuneScape 3 is the same way. But the NPC and the character animations just look, I always find looks just so dumb.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see like how the plugin turns out. It could be super sick, it could be terrible. I mean, who knows? But
it is something that I am looking forward to. Is this? Do you care at all? Like, do you think you play with? You don't even use animation smoothing, do you?
No, I consider myself a purist when it comes to old school RuneScape. Like, I don't use inventory tags. I don't use animation smoothing. I don't use True Tile. But with that being said, I'm still like very excited for this client, and maybe I won't end up using it. Probably not, but there's a lot of people that will, and I love the fact there's more options for our game.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more things to keep people coming back to it, because at the end of the day, this game is built on the backs of the community by the community. So why not give the people what they want? And if anything, it's going to give Jagex more revenue because more people are going to want to come and play RuneScape.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another positive part of people, even if you don't like the graphics, maybe won't care about this at all, but this is going to pressure Jagex to do a better job with their graphic update.
They could also just not do it and focus on other things. Like I I would love to see a day where they just like officially partner with RuneLite. I know there might be some like complications with that, but in that sense, like RuneLite takes care of, you know, the HD graphics, the plugins, and then Jagex can focus on the content, which is what we really need.
Oh, so you don't even want them to be working on That's crazy talk.
How's that crazy? Because okay, Dills, if Jagex, let's say they work on an HD client for 2 years, let's not joke around. They probably exploration means they've had a meeting about it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they're in early stages of development. Okay, they're working on certain sections of the world. Do you think it will be better or worse than what comes out on Monday?
I think it has potential. I mean, at this point, I think it has to be better.
You're right. It has to be better. But do you think it will be? Is my question.
That's a tough one. I want to say yes, because it'll be pathetic if it's not, because especially because they're going to be shutting down HD clients when that new update eventually comes out. And if we're having to downgrade our experience,
probably going to come out on Steam as well, which means because that's the C++ client, which means they wouldn't be able to get it on RuneLite because it's a different coding system.
Okay, it's like I don't exactly know how the inner workings of that
as far as I know, that like the original client is on, I'm not sure it's like C or C+ or something, but I know that the Steam one is on C++, so it's like slightly more advanced.
Yeah,
which means it's also, I remember ModMatt saying it's significantly harder to write, or near impossible to write bot programs for that client by comparison to what we currently have. Like, it's a joke to write them for RuneLite right now, and the main game client, it's like very, very easy to write bots and scripts and stuff like that. Very easy to make plugins, but it becomes much trickier when you get to C++, which is why they're thinking, he was saying, like, if the game was like that on that type of client from the beginning, we wouldn't have had as many problems. So I think that's the main difference. But imagine they only released it on that client and then shut down all the other clients and just forced us to play on the Steam one.
Yeah, because so this is like brings me to like my first conspiracy.
Yeah, cue the music, dude. It's about damn time.
Yeah, this is a big. We've been holding it off for this one. Honestly, I don't even think this is a conspiracy. It feels like this is actually the way they're moving. I would not be surprised that they are planning to at some point shut down all third-party clients. Now, again, so my knowledge when it comes to like coding or game engines or different scripting languages, I've got like no idea how exactly that sort of stuff works. But we have, as you mentioned, the C++ client on Steam. It's like smoother. It's being basically beta tested on Steam. They've introduced these client features that right now are only on Steam, like the tile markers and like the fishing spot locations and the timers for your... some of the RuneLite plugins we have today are being released on the Steam client as a beta test, and eventually it'll be introduced into the full game. And I think when... with the graphics update, this is all going to be in part of that plan as well. And if there's which is why they wanted to shut down the HD client now versus later when people are actually using it. Of course, I think things are going to be trickier now that they've allowed it.
Yeah, now that, like you said, if it's not as good, if it's not better than the client that's released on Monday, they're fucked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they pretty much have to. And as someone who is looking forward to like, I am excited for like a different graphic system, as long as it looks good. So I actually don't see a bad reason for that. I think with shutting down third-party clients in general, they've tried this in the past, it'll help them like combat cheat clients, which is a thing that we see it exists. A lot of cheat clients that allow people to either PvP more effectively, or the Zulrah helpers and the raiding helpers that kind of tell you where to stand and what to do. They have the one-click blackjacking, because right now blackjacking is the best thieving experience, but it's very tedious. But there are clients out there that allow you to basically one-click blackjack. But they are bannable. So if you use those clients, you do have that you know your account could be banned for using it. So I think having an official one client banning all third-party clients, if it's C++, maybe it's easier to combat cheat clients as well, and botting clients in general, because people complain about there being too many bots. If I were to think about it, I'm like, this plan would make sense if that's what they're planning on doing at some point. You know, there is a lot of there is like a botting issue. There are, there's rumors that a lot of gold farmers who play this game use cheat clients as a way to effectively PVM and make more money. But I could see them shutting down third-party clients in the future and forcing everyone to use their own client. But part of me doesn't see that as... It almost feels like a necessary evil, if you even want to call it that, because if this could be a solution to our bot problem, or the cheating problem, or whatever the issues are that comes from having bots and cheat clients, if this could be the solution to that, would it be worth it? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Now I've got another question for you, Dills.
Okay.
Goes even deeper.
Oh boy.
If we got rid of all bots tomorrow, do you think the game would be better or worse?
That's a good question. There's the debate of like, would things might go up in price, like when it comes to like some of the AFK or like a lot of maybe last man standing things you buy from last man standing might go up in price, right? Because a lot of bots are running last man standing, or a lot of cheat clients and gold farmers are at Zulrah, so things there might go up in price.
Things wouldn't just slightly go up in price. Necessary supplies would be disturbingly expensive. Prayer pots would be like 40, 50k a pop.
Ooh,
Super restores would be
you
more.
think it would be that high?
Yes, it would be, because the only way for these things to come into the game would be through legitimate players. Like, I don't think we fully have a grasp on how many bots there are in the game. Like, it is disturbing.
I think that's the hard part, is that like I see a lot of people complaining all the time about bots this, bot that, cheat clients this, and the only time I really encounter a huge amount of bots, you'll see like bot farms filling up jugs of wine or jugs of water at the Varrock Fountain. I'll see like waves of bots at Last Man Standing. That's a trickier one because that's a very competitive game mode. But yeah, I really don't quite know the effect of the botting issue.
Deeply ingrained in the game at this point that I think the economy would be unrecognizable without them. Like, it would be that bad. Things like basically all basic necessities, all Herblore secondaries would be disgustingly expensive. Herblore would become so expensive.
Now, but would that be a bad thing?
Expensive. No, that's my question. I'm not saying whether it would be or wouldn't be a bad thing. I think at this point in the game, I think it would be bad, because now all of a sudden, sure, skilling is profitable, but you wouldn't be able to PVM as much because you can't afford as many supplies. So now you're being forced to do things you don't want, like do farm runs, so that you can afford to do things like raids.
Yeah, I think
that's the danger. I'm not saying it's necessarily what would happen, but that is the danger. Bots have artificially accelerated the speed at which main accounts can get off Tutorial Island, learn the game, and then make their way into late game content.
Mm-hmm.
And that artificial speed wouldn't be there if there were no bots. The game would be a much slower progression. But it isn't. You can have an up and running main, like running chambers and being, into deep end game content within months. Even if you don't know a lot about RuneScape.
And there are a lot of items that where they took measures to reduce the rate bots can acquire certain items. So a big one I remember is the red spider eggs. They used to be dirt cheap, like, I don't know, 10 gold each. And they removed them from the Nightmare Zone chest where you could purchase it, I'm pretty sure.
That simply shot them up, and most people that do Nightmare Zone are legitimate players.
And now spider eggs are worth 500 gold each, and same with the potato cactuses, I think.
That's what I'm saying. Herblore would be so expensive if bots didn't exist, and it's already an expensive skill for most players. Chins would be incredibly expensive. Trying to think of other commonly botted items.
The thing that would worry me
expensive. Yeah.
The thing that would worry me the most, I think, about, again, I have no idea how the botting problem is, and I'm not trying to say the bots are good, but I know that when I've played RuneScape 3, which virtually has no botting problem, virtually, I don't really know, but you don't see, bots like gold farming, because they had some measure put in place that can detect bots pretty well, and it gets rid of them. I forget what it's called.
It's also just not profitable to bot on that game. So
well, yeah, and the problem is that when you go on there, like, the one thing that's awesome about old school RuneScape is that you can buy basically any item you want on the Grand Exchange, like bronze daggers, this or that, and it's like, I always wonder, like, who the hell's selling bronze daggers? And I wonder if there's like, the worry is that a lot of these, there's bots out there who are just selling any item that could be marginally profitable, even though a regular player might be like, there's no reason for me to sell a bronze dagger, whereas a bot is like, well, I can just run this script and it can automatic. That's an example. It's probably a bad example, but you know what I mean? You go buy any item, you can almost always find that item for sale. It's very rare that I that I try to buy an item and I can't purchase it. By the way, the Great Krend house banners that you get from Clue Scrolls, you can't buy those. They're so hard to buy. Nobody sells them because they're also hard to obtain.
I've got like 6 of each if you ever want one.
I stocked up. I have 2 of them when I noticed it. So I wonder, does that feel...
I see where you're coming from. I'm not saying bots are good. I'm just saying that they're so deeply entrenched in the game at this point that I just don't know if we would recognize, especially the economy of RuneScape. I think the game would change drastically.
Yeah, I think that's something. If bots have always been a thing
from the beginning, would it have been better? Probably, but I don't know that for sure. Is what we have now bad? That's another question.
Yeah, that's
not condoning bots, but I'm saying as a player, how heavily does it affect you? Like, yeah, I know these bot people are getting away with like real world trading and all this bullshit that we don't want in our game on that level. We just don't want that. So obviously they're bad for that reason. But I'm talking about your player experience is terrible.
Yeah, the only time bots I find hinder my experience is when you go to the Grand Exchange and there's people spamming. The gambling bots, the scamming bots. Those ones you are directly seeing, and they're not really affecting you, but it's just like, God, you don't want to go to the Grand Exchange.
You're right.
It's annoying.
Those ones suck for sure.
But like, yeah, how often? I honestly, and maybe it's because I'm a higher level, but I don't often go to an area and I'm like, wow, this is unplayable. Last Man Standing is one of them. But here's the thing as well. There's 2 types of bots that I've seen at Last Man Standing. There's the bots that are really good at PvPing. They switch their prayers really fast. They switch their attacks really fast. And they're just really good at PvP. Then there's the other bots that are really bad at PvP, but there's tons of them. Those bots, I kind of liked those bots because when those bots got removed, it took me forever to get into a Last Man Standing match. I had to wait like 5 minutes in between rounds. Whereas when there was bots flooding, like terrible bots, that's the thing. When the bots were bad, there was just lots of them. And that was the tactic, is that they hopefully enough bots fight each other. One of the bots is going to get points in the end, and that's how they make their money. It allowed me to continuously play Last Man Standing. And when I fought those bots, it was like a free kill. So as someone who wasn't good at Last Man Standing, it helped me kind of... it's kind of like a handicap. I was able to get some free upgrades to my items.
Yeah, it's time to cue the music again.
Oh, so you got another one? I got a few of them. Let's go.
What if bots, where the majority of bots were owned by Jagex? All right, hear me out.
I'm listening.
Then they are real world trading the money to get extra revenue because, as we've heard, maybe their salaries aren't the greatest. And by also at that same token, they're creating their own enemy to fight against. and they know all of its moves.
Oh, it's
So
like
in the end, they come out on top after having profited from the entire war. So isn't there like some kind of story that sounds like this?
Yeah, which one are you thinking of?
None. I can't think of any. But there's got to be stories like this. This seems like a common.
I remember like Attack on Titan is kind of like. Have you seen Attack on Titan?
Yeah, I have. Where it's like he's the enemy in the end or whatever.
Yeah, I've only seen the first season. But I remember the rumors were like, you know, when humanity has a common enemy, they all work together.
I know one. Have you ever seen The Village by M. Night Shyamalan?
No.
Okay, so basically it was huge spoilers for this 20-year-old movie. It's actually quite good. So there's these people who live in sort of like an old-fashioned sort of village. You know, no technology, like 1800s style. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they're not allowed out at nighttime or something like that. Because the woods are haunted and they have like patrols and things like that. And they're trying to keep everyone inside. But in the end, it turns out it was like the elders in the village that were dressing up as the monsters on the outside.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And like one of the kids who had a disability had dressed up as a monster and accidentally been killed or something like that.
Huh.
So, and ended up being a bit of a scandal. But basically, they created the monster to keep everyone inside.
Right. Yeah. So it's
like the heroes when they were vanquished. So.
And it makes you able to like, you know, if it's like when whenever there's like some sort of, you know, giant catastrophe, usually whatever government's in charge, they tend to have a very high approval rate because of how they handle whatever tragedy is happening.
Yeah, like Trudeau's government right now, for example.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're not doing great. But like,
more so last year, they were doing very, very well.
Yeah, beginning of the pandemic, you know.
Why they tried to trigger election in the spring. They were doing so well with getting vaccines.
Didn't work out too well, but
it didn't work. They tried to force the other parties to trigger it so they didn't look like the bad guys as well. So they would have won a majority for sure. But sorry, Canadian politics here. We'll get out of it. We'll get out of it for now. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, but
I see where you're coming from.
The same thing where like the pandemic was a good example because there was definitely premiers that I didn't quite agree with who were conservatives, which is like more of a what do you want to call it, like center right for Canada and politics. I didn't quite agree with our premier in Ontario. But at the beginning of the pandemic, I felt he did a very good job of like, dealing with the situation. And I was like, you know what? This guy isn't as bad as I thought. I mean, of course, my opinion changed as time went on because, he might have dropped the ball a few times. But generally speaking, usually whoever's in the power when some big event, disaster happens, as long as they don't completely screw up, they tend to like, if they can just manage it, they tend to get like voted back in because people see like, oh, he did a good job with that thing. So with Jagex and the botting, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Could be. Okay, maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. And one day they're just gonna ban all third-party clients, and we're gonna accept it because they got rid of the bots.
Yeah, and then they take away the polling system, and it's all over.
It's over.
I mean, one thing about the botting thing too is like I play a lot of like mobile games, and sometimes when you play mobile games, and not just mobile games, but if in lower brackets, especially if it's games like has a dedicated player base but isn't quite growing, lower brackets, it might be hard to find people at your skill level. So this is where developers add like AI bots that kind of pretend, and they might have like a username to make it look like they're an actual player. And they have it there so that when you kill them, you go like, oh, this is fun. Fortnite does this where they added bots in at lower brackets where, you're bad at the game. You just started playing, you kill someone though. And even though you don't think it's a bot, but it makes you feel good. You're like, I killed them, got some upgrades to my guns. This is fun.
Like Scavs and Tarkov.
Yeah. Even though Scavs kill me every time, but still, yeah. I totally
don't play Tarkov, but I know that's a thing.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's right. So that's,
anyways, that was my conspiracy. So
okay, I got another one.
I'm glad I finally got to drop one. Oh, again, we're going again.
All right, yeah, I had to write a few of these down. I kind of went dark. It's like late hours. I had like a little lamp on, and I'm like connecting the lines of string on a corkboard. All right, so this is the next conspiracy that I had as well. Again, it could be both of these things. Who knows? It could be all three. Could be yours as well. But it made me think. Okay, so 117 is like the head of this movement or this problem, right?
Yeah.
117scape and Adam from Moonlight. But they aren't the only HD clients. There is another one that I have been watching a bunch, and Matt K, who still streams, has been primarily using this client, and it is called, let me find it here, just HD Old School. It's its own client separate from Moonlight, and it's very popular. So when Jagex issued the statement of shutting down all HD clients, they sent this thing to every single HD client, and to my knowledge, there's 3 other ones. I was trying to find the other one, but it must be like not as popular. But there's a couple HD clients that are the most popular right now that are in development. And I'm in the HDOS Discord server, and I was watching this play out, and they have had to shut down their server, their client. Now with all this back and forth with talking with 117scape, Jagex gave the green light to 117, but they still shut down every other HD client. It's just no one else cares about the other HD clients. So HDOS, I've been reading the developer on there, had mentioned that after Jagex came back and said 117scape can continue with their HD client, the other HDOS client still had to be shut down, and they weren't part of the conversation. So to my knowledge, they're still having to shut down their client as well. So what, the saying where it's like no publicity, like bad publicity is good publicity for something because it brings attention to like the product from outside consumers. Mm-hmm. It made me wonder with all this, what if this was all a marketing ploy?
A marketing ploy?
Because Old School RuneScape was on the top of Reddit for 3 different posts, which brought a lot of people being like, what the hell is going on here? Articles are writing about it and all this stuff, and suddenly people are going to look at it and be like, they might think, oh snap, I remember this game. Maybe I'll try it. And this might bring some new eyes on it. But also, this could be a way. What if this was a way to promote 117scape and destroying all of his competitors? So
you're saying 117 is in bed with Dragon?
Yeah, what if he was in on it? Because his Patreon page has quadrupled in size since then. The amount of people who are supporting him on Patreon since this week has tripled to quadrupled in size for his patrons.
This is a good one, Dills. This is a good conspiracy.
Yeah, and then with the other HD clients that are still told to shut down, beforehand, people who are using HDOS, they might not even care if 117 comes out with one because they might like HDOS more. But if HDOS has to get shut down, now they have to use the next best thing, which would be 117scape. And all other competitors have since been shut down. So that is my other conspiracy. What do you think? Is that a good one?
I really like that one. Yeah, that they've just been in on it the whole time.
Yeah, I mean
it certainly worked out for both parties, I assume. Did we mention that it comes out on Monday?
Yeah. So it'll be out.
Okay.
We all gonna try it soon.
Well, it'll be out when this podcast is out, probably.
Yeah, most likely. So
obviously we haven't. It's Saturday right now, the 11th. So we haven't actually seen it in action.
Yeah. We've seen screenshots. And I know that the HDOS client was available. That's one that I've been following closely. That's why I'm referencing it. Because I thought the client I actually think I liked it better the way it looked. And I've been watching them, and they said like, no, we haven't been given the thumbs up to continue development yet. So we'll have to see there. And then, okay, I got one more conspiracy to throw at you. All right. What if So I wrote this one down before they kind of came back and said 117escape can continue. What if Jagex just really doesn't want to do group Iron Man mode, and they thought if they did this before group Iron Man was going to get voted on, a lot of people would spite vote. And
spite vote no.
Yeah, spite vote no.
You think they wanted to throw out their 2 years of time because they don't want to finish the last few months of work?
Or they're just like, this is like so many issues, and we really don't want to do this.
That's hilarious. That's a hilarious one.
No,
I like it.
That's why I say that one for last.
That one's a little more out there, but I believe it.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, anyways, that was there's your HD clients in a nutshell. We'll have to see. I'm looking forward to seeing how it looks, but I know someone like yourself and other people as well are like, they don't care for the graphics. And I think the biggest problem was like if they just shut down 117 earlier on, people would be less upset. Although again, there's other clients.
I'm not saying I don't care for the graphics. I'm very excited to try it out.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I don't know, man. You're right. Like, had they have told him this when he started his project? Yeah, sure, they're well within their right to do so. But yeah, it was all about the sort of like disrespectfulness and the timing. It was brutal.
Yeah, and this is kind of like a part 2, maybe even a part 3 if you want to tackle on the third-party client drama that happened way back. But you remember that there was another HD client that got shut down because they refused to share their code with Jagex, and Jagex thought that they were doing something sketch.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, there it is right there.
Well, anyways, the sort of adventure is over, so we'll get it on Monday.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Jagex can work on something else or their own HD client.
Yeah, and then we'll wait for the next.
If it took them 2 years to get Group Iron Man mode out, how long do you think it's going to take them to get a damn HD client out?
I saw the pictures from the stream, and I was like, man, these look so sick. And everyone's like, oh, no, these are like just pictures done up using a
just
program
concept art. It's
like, from
it
Blender.
Better be that good.
And I was like, what's the point? Why are you showing off? Like, what? I don't know. Whatever. Anywho, okay, let's go on our break, and then, yeah, we'll be back. And in this segment, we talk about finances, but not the fun stuff. We talk about how you can support the show, actually, and whatever I guess I got going on financially in game. Actually, funny story. I had to set up PayPal for Patreon way on back, and so I set up a PayPal. And since then, I went back to school, changed career paths, and I've been doing a lot of like freelance podcast editing on the side as well. And I used PayPal for those transactions, and I had someone message me I had a new, I guess, like client, new person I was working with, and they emailed me, and they were like, what's up with the Wilderness Podcast? And I looked, and I realized I had my account set up as a business account to take in for money transactions, and I put the name of the business was the Wilderness Podcast. So whenever I worked with someone and I would edit a podcast and I would send them an invoice, it was basically making it out to like the business, the Wilderness Podcast. And I was like, oh crap. Oh, this is how we promote the show. It doesn't work very well. It does not work well at all. Maybe it does. Who knows? So anyways, that's a little funny thing that happened this week. But hey, you know what? If you want to support the show, you can do that a couple of ways. One of the ways is by going to patreon.com/TheWildernessPodcast. You can sign up for a one of three, is it 3 tiers? 4 tiers, I think. $1, $3, $5, and $10. But $3 and up, this is all Canadian, by the way. $3 and up will get you access to live stream Q&As. I was talking to someone, actually, spoiler alert, I've been talking with the other OSRS podcasts out there. Won't go into details now, but one of them was, I guess, looking at our Patreon page and was saying, like, Dills, how do you do a weekly Q&A with the J mods? And I was like, what? And then I realized, so like, it's not quite weekly, but I catch up eventually With the RuneScape, with the Jagex does like a live stream every single week on Twitch. Well, mostly every single week, where they show off different stuff and ask questions. Sometimes like art streams and stuff. And then we'll watch it basically together. That's the idea. As I sit down, we do a little pre-show, watch it with some commentary over top of the audio, and then there's like a post-show talk, and that goes to Patreon. But they thought I was like actually doing the live stream where it's like Mod Ash, Mod Kieran, Mod Arcane, and Dills. And I was like, I guess it's the way the titles were worded, so I had to go fix those. That was funny. Anyways, patreon.com/TheWildernessPodcast, where you can support the show. And I want to welcome Cole Mazurvi to the Patreon crew. Thank you so much for your support. Really, really do appreciate it. And of course, our $5 tier, one of our $5 tier supporters gets this episode dedicated to them. And this week it is Mr. Mike Stevenson. And if you're on our $10 tier supporters, every episode was dedicated to Gentinu, Splimo, Dreadful Monkeys, Szechuan, Mallard, Twisted Soul, Hoyt, Monodam, J Blaz, and super shout out to Strosity. So thank you so much, everyone, for supporting the show. But hey, you know what? Patreon's not for everyone. Instead, you might want to donate coffee, and you can go to buymeacoffee.com/dills. So thank you to Caradoc, 2JZ Soup, The Sixth Forced Murder. Thank you guys so much for buying me coffee this week. You guys rock. All right, let's get into the show. Quick sidebar. I think I mentioned this, but I answered some of the fan emails this week. I did it solo, but Heartless comes right on back onto the show for the outro, housekeeping, all that fun stuff. Okay, let's get back to the episode. All right, everyone. All right, we are back from our break, and we have an email and a message on Discord to get over. Quick disclaimer, Heartless had to sneak out for a minute, so I was like, I'm going rogue. We're snagging all these fan questions, fan mail. What do you want to call it? Fan mail? That sounds weird. Anywho, doesn't matter. We're going rogue. Okay, so the first write-in comes from Mr. Burt Macklin, Johnny Karate. Love that name, by the way, on Discord. And he says, I've never done PvP since Old School came out, and last time was probably back in 2007. I was wondering if you guys could talk about it on the podcast. Maybe some tips and essential things you need to know. I kind of want to get into it and try it out, but I don't know anything about it. The strat back when I was a kid was get their HP low enough, nail them with a rune two-hander. I know people do things a bit differently now. Maybe you guys could discuss it in a little segment. So this is like a really interesting question, because I mean, I'm not a good PKer now. I wasn't a good PKer back then, but back in the day, I mean, the reason I played this game so much was because of the Wilderness. Now I play it for a multitude of different reasons, obviously, and I don't really PK. But PKing always is what was a huge draw to me back in the day. And it's kind of what really got me excited for the game. No other game had PvP like RuneScape does, where, Escape from Tarkov, sort of, where you get killed and you lose all your items, but it's a little bit differently, right? RuneScape, you really have to work for your shit. So it was something that I always loved, and I did a lot of PKing back in the day. But you didn't really need to be that good. The strats you needed to learn were very minimal, and it felt like it came down to just having a good account. If your account was made for PKing, you're going to do pretty well. And my account back in the day it had 99 strength, 90 attack, 70 defense, 52 prayer. And then eventually they took away PvP, PKing the Wilderness, and I quit the game. So I never really got to dive too deep into it. But since then, things have changed a ton. There was hybriding back in the day. Now there's tri-breeding. I don't really remember tri-breeding being a thing. And what tri-breeding is when you use all three attack styles, combat styles, to fight someone: ranged, melee, and mage. Back in the day, I always remember it being hybrid. You were either a ranger who switched to your DDS to spec, or maybe a meleer who switched to your mage to attack, or a range and mage. You were always like a combination of two things. But now the best PKers are a combination of three. And people have gotten really, really good. And it's very daunting for a new person to get into PvP because people are really, really good and you will get your ass handed to you. But things have changed even since 2013 when OSRS came out. We don't even have the wilderness anymore, and 1v1 fighting happens in PvP worlds. And from like my experience with 1v1s is that in Edgeville, things were a lot more casual, still tough, but casual. But in PvP worlds, things are a lot. Maybe it's just like the more casual base stopped going into the PvP worlds, but people there are good, and there's a lot more you got to deal with. So the first thing I guess I would mention is like the best way to learn. If you want to learn on your main account, Last Man Standing is a really good way to learn. I forced myself to do Last Man Standing. I was a terrible tri-brider, but Last Man Standing gives you a tri-bridding setup, and the way the fight works is it's really a tri-brid fight with somebody else, and people are really good. You will get your ass handed to you, but I forced myself to do it, and over 10 matches, 20 matches, 30 matches, slowly started to improve, and then I got to a point where I was getting kills. And that felt nice. That was like obvious improvement. And then it got to a point where I got kills. I got at least one kill more often than I didn't get a kill, which was an obvious improvement, unless everyone was just sucking. And then about 125 matches in, and getting to like the finals, 1v1, the final 1v1, like 3, 4, 5 times, I finally got my first win. And that felt so friggin' good. Now, a little bit of luck played out there because when you kill someone Last Man Standing, you get a key, which allows you to upgrade. It randomly gives you new upgrades to your weapons and armor. But also, when you end up in the finale, most of the time I faced off against someone who was amazing and was going to just kick my ass. But when I finally won, I faced somebody who was much more close to my skill level. And that allowed me to win. Now, what I would recommend going into Last Man Standing, I would definitely, again, please, I'm not an expert PvPer, but this is my experience with it, and I did become a better PvPer over time. Not great. I still can't compete against like anyone who's really good, but I can go PKing and I won't get my ass completely trashed on me. Usually, that doesn't happen. So what I would do, and what I recommend to people is when you're doing Last Man Standing, and this is your first time in Last Man Standing, you're not very good as a tri-brider, don't worry about using magic. Stick between range and melee. And the reason I say this is because this will give you a lot of time to practice changing your protection prayers. Oh, you see he's using mage against you, switch to your magic prayer. See he's using range, switch to your range prayer. See he's about to use melee, switch to your melee prayer. And then what you're doing is you're damaging him with melee, and then if you're not frozen, you switch to your you're damaging them with ranged, and if you're not frozen, you can switch to your melee and get a melee attack off. And it's a lot easier to manage versus having to add mage in there as well, because magic, when you're trying to freeze them in between, it's hard. It's really easy to get overwhelmed because mage isn't just switch to your gear and click. It's switch to your gear, click on your ice barrage, click on them. It's just like a lot more to manage. So I always recommend sticking to your meleeing and range until you start getting comfortable with that. And then eventually add mage into that, and then just keep doing it. And if you're getting your ass handed to you a bunch, that's fine. Just keep practicing and you will get better, because I eventually got better. And then I can go into now sometimes I go deep wildy PKing, and I'll bump into people, and when we fight, the person might still be better than me and they might outplay me completely. That being said, I don't die super fast because I'm able to like mitigate their damage. I'm able to damage them a little bit to keep them on a little bit of a defense. But then every now and then I'll actually face someone or even a small team sometimes and be able to get a kill or two. And that's happened a couple times and it feels good. And it's like, that's what I like about PvP. It's obvious improvements. You can obviously see yourself getting better. So Last Man Standing is where I would definitely go practice. Maybe put some money aside and go do some deep wildy PKing once you start getting a couple kills, once you start getting to the finals of Last Man Standing. It might take a while though, but it's good practice, and you will know you'll see yourself improving. The last thing I want to say is, because you mentioned it, about getting their HP low, switch to a Rune two-hander. This might not make you technically a good PKer or tri-birder on your account, but it's fun, and it might help you with your mechanics. Make a free-to-play PKing account. Make a low-level pure. And the best way to do that is you get their range up to a certain level, and you get their attack and strength up to a certain level. And what you do is you use your range to whittle them down, and then you switch to your two-hander to try to KO them. The reason I say that is because they're easy to make. It is fun, and if you die, it doesn't cost a whole lot of money to get your gear back. And that's the big problem. Is when you're PvPing on your main, if you die, it can be like at least 500k, so it can be tricky. God, and once I had to really restrain myself from going off on like. Back in the glory days of PKing, because that's what I always think of, is when the mage bank was filled with people, and it was just like a battle of like solo maxed accounts fighting each other. It's fun times. But yeah, I've talked to a few people in the Discord because we have a few PKers in there, and we used to do more PKing events, but as more people started raiding, we stopped doing PvP events as much. And I was like talking, it's like, we got to do more PvP events. We got to get some teams together and go just go fight stuff. That'd be fun. All right, thank you, Burt Macklin, Johnny Karate. Appreciate that message, that email, that Discord message. Blah. All right, we got an email from Myzix and Land Solar, the new Hardcore Iron Man. Congrats on your new Hardcore Iron Man, by the way. He says, I made myself a Hardcore Iron Man, which has been getting more into the game since the limitation of the account takes more time and more planning out what I have to do. The game is more fun when I'm not relying on the Grand Exchange for my needs, and getting what a mediocre drop for a normal account is super exciting on an Iron Man. My question would be, what would you like to see if there was boss encounters that awarded the player by doing the encounter right? I heard one podcast you had with Deegan where you try to explain a WoW boss, but when you brought it up, it made me think of the Will of the Emperor fight, where if you were a melee class, you had to dodge Arcing Cleaves, the Arcing Cleaves, and you would gain a stacking damage buff if you kept dodging the cleaves. And the player was awarded by doing the fight based on positioning. If there was a way Jagex could take a concept of rewarding the player by doing something like this, would you like to see it in the next raid or the bosses in the future? That's a good question, because I think we kind of have it, but differently. We don't outright get a buff, but if you can do the mechanics properly, you tend to get more damage off, and it allows you to use less resources and kill the boss faster, but you're usually often able to skip phases or skip fights. So I did a little bit of Grotesque Gargoyles, which is a boss, this week. And one of the attacks it does is during the second phase, they shoot these purple orbs out, and the orbs sit for a couple seconds and they start to grow. And when they get to a certain size, they get absorbed by the boss and the boss heals. If you're able to do enough damage, you can kill the boss before it heals, which saves a lot of time, because the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to go and like absorb the orbs yourself. So that's not, I know that's not what you're talking about, but that's exactly what it kind of reminds me of. I think that is a way to add some sort of mechanic like what you're talking about, where let's say the boss is trying to do damage towards you and you're able to like deflect it or do this, and then you can do more damage. I think it's a hard thing to balance, though, for RuneScape specifically, because it seems like it's one of those things where like if you're unskilled, you are not only punished for like not knowing the mechanics and stuff, but now you're going to be even more punished because you can't receive the buff. And I think the thing that I noticed with old school RuneScape players is that they break down fights and they basically like make some fights feel like a spreadsheet, right? We talked about Olm earlier, how Olm is a raid boss, and people break it down where it's like every 3 attacks, it does this check. And if it doesn't do this check, it does this attack. And they have like all these patterns down. So it becomes this thing where like, if you are good enough at the boss and you know the boss perfectly, like how it works, you can make every single fight be the same with Olm, basically speaking. But I think it's a cool mechanic, and I think there is room for it. I think Jagex has a hard time introducing a brand new mechanic, though, because they're so worried of like how is it going to break the game. And that's the thing; they're not always the most experimental when it comes to it. So it's something we have to keep an eye out, and we might actually see something in the new raid. Right? I think the new raid, we're going to see a whole lot of new stuff. So it should be pretty exciting. But yeah, I appreciate the email there. One thing that it kind of also reminded me of is with RuneScape 3, there's a few bosses that when you kill the boss, okay, this isn't actually what you're talking about at all, but it just reminds me of it, so I'm going to bring it up. When you kill the boss resurrects, and now it's even stronger. And every time you kill it, you get like a multiplier, and then you have the more rewards you're going to get once you decide to like step out of the boss. So it rewards you for being able to kill the boss multiple times. But it's like break the bank, right? You guys know break the bank, where it's like, do you open the vault or not open the vault? If you say yes, you have a chance of getting more money. Or if you say yes, it could say, bam, you lose all your money. So it's like you want to get as much as you can out of the fight without dying, because if you die, you lose everything. Anyways, fun stuff. Thank you so much for the emails and messages, guys. Heartless is going to be back in a second, so let's get on to our closing of the show. All right. So now, okay, it's been a hectic week, but let's wrap this bad boy up. So guys, if you want to write in any questions, any comments, if you want to give your opinion on what your thought about this whole fiasco, or do you like HT graphics, or what do you think about these conspiracies? We had 4 conspiracies. Go vote on them. Which one was best? You can do that on our email is TheWildernessPodcast@gmail.com. Twitter is @TheWildernessRS. We have a Discord server where you can find the link into the description of this episode, and on Twitter if that's more your thing as well. We have a friends chat called Wild CC, and we have a clan called Clay and Wild as well, where we do a bunch of fun events, Skilling of the Week tournaments with prizes we give away. It's the clan. If you want to join a clan, if you're not in a clan, you can join Clan Wild. Yeah, I don't think I'm missing anything else. Heartless, anything you want to say before we get on out of here?
Nope. Join the Discord.
You got a song in mind? You want me to pull up a song?
Pull one up for us, Stills. Why don't we go? Is there any controversials? No. I don't know.
Okay, you know what? I typed in. Oh, this is a good one. I typed in controversial, and we got pest control. That came up as when I was typing controversial. So the pest control song. I was
gonna say, yeah.
This is a music track that is unlocked during pest control minigame or during the first part of the naval assault in Dragon Slayer 2. That's interesting. I didn't know that. According to data crowdsourced via RuneLight, approximately 84% of players unlock the track playing pest control, but 16% unlock it during Dragon Slayer 2. That's interesting. Yeah, cool stuff. So this is all the pests that had to get controlled over this week, because I wanted to mention this as well, but man, the community sucks sometimes. As much as like Jagex screwed up, the community also sucks. Very toxic.
Yeah, they were really toxic for sure.
Oh man, it's a damn shame, but we're better.
They were really, really mean towards some of there's definitely got to be death threats and all sorts sent out towards the JMods. Like they don't deserve this kind of hatred.
No,
like,
it's terrible.
Sure, it was a terrible mistake that they made, and it was like extremely shocking, and like I'm not saying it's okay to be angry, all right? It's totally fine to be angry, but you don't need to like take it out on these poor JMods. Yeah,
I wanted to mention this during when we were talking about it. The conspiracies got away from me. But like, I mean, overall, it's nice that Jagex was listening to the community. There's lots of games that just like go dark on social media and don't, they make some, do you think if WoW made some sort of shit like this, do you think they'd come back and say like, okay, you know what, we're in talks with? No, they don't give a fuck. So RuneScape's got some really nice developers. Whether or not they make mistakes or made a shitty call or whatever it is, it's nice that we can feel heard. It just sucks. Yeah, the community can suck sometimes. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I think it's also been unfortunate the people who do suck that did all those horrible things will feel validated by Jagex's decision. But in the end, it was just the community banding together to say, hey, like that's not right what you're doing here, and it's not okay.
Yeah,
and
it's like the vocal minority, right? Always is
the discussion. Yeah, but I mean, like you go anywhere in life, RuneScape, anywhere else, you're gonna find these kind of people. So
yeah, so if you're on Reddit, Twitter, or Twitch, you'll probably usually see the darker side of the community. But
I imagine our community has a slightly larger, darker side than most communities.
But we got into this discussion on Discord because I was thinking, like, is it because we play RuneScape that we see the darkness of our communities? You and I both can speak on how bad League of Legends is.
Yeah, but it's not the same though.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's not the same.
And then I think, does Call of Duty have a dark side of the? I don't think so. But then again, I don't play Call of Duty. I think RuneScape. Yeah, I think there's just like that vocal minority can be very loud, and they are much worse compared to other games and communities. It feels like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, be the change you want to see in the world, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all. Was it peace and love, positive vibes all around? We'll see everyone on the next episode.
Bye.